12 years, it's a number that used to feel solid, like a foundation, and for so long it was. I remember the early days, the whirlwind of excitement, the feeling that Clarissa and I were building something unbreakable. We met at that ridiculous art gallery opening, me pretending to understand modern sculpture, and her laughing at my obvious confusion. That laugh. It was like a melody then, bright and infectious. It pulled me in. We built a life, brick by brick. The small apartment crammed with mismatched furniture but filled with laughter. Then the house, the one with the big backyard where we swore we'd get a dog someday. The vacations, the shared dreams, the quiet evenings just talking for hours, lost in each other's world. Those were the good times, the amazing times, and the anniversaries, each one a marker, a celebration of our commitment. We always made a big deal out of them, a fancy dinner, a weekend getaway, something special to remind us of where we started and how far we'd come. This one, our 12th, felt different, not in a bad way, not then, more significant, like we'd reached a new level, a deeper understanding of each other. Clarissa had been the one to choose the restaurant. Elegance, she'd said, her eyes sparkling, something memorable, and she'd found it, this place perched high above the city, with those panoramic windows that made the skyline look like a movie set. She loved places like this, the kind of places where you felt like you were part of something glamorous, something special. I remember watching her plan the evening, the way she'd pore over restaurant reviews, debating between different cuisines and atmospheres, the way she'd finally settle on this place, with its promise of sophistication and romance. She wanted everything to be perfect, and I, of course, wanted her to be happy, because her happiness for so long had been tied to mine, or so I thought. I remember thinking about the past 12 years, all the moments that had shaped us, the challenges we'd faced, the arguments we'd weathered, the compromises we'd made. Marriage isn't always easy, it's work, but we'd always worked at it, or again, so I thought. We'd always found a way back to each other, a way to reconnect. There was that time with my job, the long hours, the constant stress. I was distant, preoccupied, but Clarissa, she'd been there, a steady presence, offering support without being demanding. And then there was her mother's illness, the emotional toll it took on her. I tried to be strong for her, to be her rock. We got through it together, or so I believed. The anniversary felt like a reward for all of that, a testament to our endurance, our love, a chance to celebrate not just the good times, but the tough ones too, the ones that had made us stronger. I remember feeling a sense of pride, a quiet triumph. We'd made it. We'd built something lasting. We'd invited family and close friends. My sister Marlene, who had always been my confidant, my rock, and Clarissa's cousin Jared, who was also a friend from college. It felt like the perfect gathering, a circle of love and support. I remember looking forward to sharing this milestone with them, with the people who had witnessed our journey from the beginning. I even remember the suit I wore, navy blue, the one Clarissa had bought me for Christmas. It fit perfectly. I felt good in it, confident, ready to celebrate. I remember thinking how radiant Clarissa would look. She always wore red, her signature color, and I knew she would be stunning. Looking back now, it's strange. All those details, those seemingly innocent thoughts, they're like fragments of a dream that was about to shatter. But in that moment, in the days leading up to the anniversary, there was only anticipation, only happiness, only the belief that I was about to celebrate 12 golden years with the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew. The restaurant was breathtaking. It lived up to all the hype. The curved windows, the city lights, spread out like a glittering carpet below. The soft music, the clinking of glasses. It was all exactly as Clarissa had envisioned. Elegant, memorable. We were shown to our table, a prime spot with a view of the entire city. Clarissa was already there, greeting everyone with her usual warmth and charm. She looked stunning. The red dress, of course, that vibrant, bold shade that always seemed to command attention. It was the same shade she wore the night we met. Or so I told myself. But even then, something felt off. Subtle, almost imperceptible. like a note slightly out of tune in a beautiful melody. It started with her laughter. It was a little too loud, a little too frequent. Almost rehearsed, she was projecting joy rather than feeling it. Then there were the toasts. She raised her glass early, a little too eagerly, it seemed. "To 12 golden years, my love," she said, her voice clear and strong. But her eyes, they didn't match. They were bright, yes, but there was a distance there, a coolness that I couldn't quite reconcile with the warmth of her words. She leaned in close when she clinked her glass against mine, her hand lingering on mine for a moment longer than necessary. 12 golden years, she whispered, her breath warm against my ear, but even that felt calculated, like she was performing for an audience, for the others at the table. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just tired, maybe a little stressed. Marriage has its ups and downs, right? It's not always fireworks and romance. Sometimes it's just routine. And maybe that's what I was feeling, a sense of routine, a comfortable familiarity that I was misinterpreting as something else. But the feeling persisted. It was like a tiny pebble in my shoe, irritating but not quite painful enough to stop me in my tracks. Just uncomfortable. I noticed how easily she engaged with Jared. They always had a good rapport, being friends from college and all. But tonight, it felt different. There was a certain intensity in their conversation, a shared joke that seemed to exclude everyone else. I watched them, her head tilted slightly towards him, her smile a little too bright, a little too focused, and his responses, they were animated, his eyes fixed on her. I told myself they were just catching up, reminiscing about old times, but the feeling wouldn't go away. Then there was the way she talked about the restaurant, the way she described the view, the ambiance. It was almost like she was describing it for someone else, not for me. Like she was trying to impress someone, to create a perfect picture for someone who wasn't there. I tried to join in the conversation, to steer it back to us, to our anniversary, but she seemed distracted. Her attention kept drifting, her eyes scanning the room, as if she was waiting for something, for someone. I remember feeling a growing sense of unease, a feeling that something was amiss, that the evening wasn't quite what it seemed. But I pushed it down. I told myself I was being silly, that I was letting my insecurities get the better of me. We were surrounded by family, by friends. Everyone was laughing, eating, enjoying themselves. It was a beautiful setting, a perfect celebration. And I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that everything was fine, that my marriage was still the solid, unbreakable thing I had always believed it to be. But the subtle discomfort lingered, a quiet warning sign that I couldn't quite ignore. The need to escape the table hit me suddenly, not in a dramatic way, just a quiet, insistent urge. I mumbled something about needing to use the restroom, a standard excuse, and stood up. Clarissa barely acknowledged me. A casual nod, her attention already back on Jared and his story, a story that, in that moment, felt too loud, too animated. I walked away down the hallway. The restaurant was a maze of dim lighting and elegant details. The wine cellar display, the hushed conversations in the shadows, the scent of citrus and polished marble. It was all part of the curated experience, an experience that now felt tainted. I was almost at the restroom door when I heard it. "Excuse me, sir?" A voice soft but urgent. I turned, expecting a forgotten wallet, a mistaken identity, anything but what came next. It was one of the waitresses, young, maybe early 20s. Her name tag read Aisha. She looked nervous, her eyes darting around the hallway. I started to move back towards the dining room, but her voice stopped me. "Yes," I said, trying to be polite, but the confusion made my tone flat. She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "I know this is strange, but are you Mr. Rowe?" My heart skipped a beat. A strange question from a stranger. "Yes," I replied, the word catching in my throat. She glanced around again, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Then she said it, the words that shattered everything. "I just saw your wife put something in your drink." The world seemed to tilt. For a full second, I couldn't process the words. I thought I'd misheard her. "I'm sorry?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I saw her drop something into your wine glass," she repeated, her voice trembling slightly. Just a little something. I thought it was a joke, some kind of anniversary thing, but the way she did it, it wasn't right. She paused, her eyes searching mine, as if trying to gauge my reaction. She looked around first, she continued, checked to make sure no one was watching. My mind was reeling. My wife, Clarissa, doing something like that? It was impossible. It had to be. But the way Aisha spoke, the sincerity in her voice, it was hard to dismiss. I wasn't going to say anything, she added quickly, but I've seen her here before, a few times, always with the same man, not you. The hallway seemed to grow colder. The scent of citrus, which had seemed so elegant moments before, now felt sharp, artificial. I stared at her, trying to make sense of her words, trying to reconcile them with the woman I thought I knew. "You're sure?" I asked, the question barely audible. She nodded, her eyes unwavering. "I wouldn't lie about something like this." My stomach churned. 1,000 thoughts crashed through my mind, disbelief, anger, denial, but none of them showed on my face. Not yet. "Thank you," I said carefully. My voice was steady, a skill honed over years of business meetings, of keeping my emotions in check while chaos raged inside. "I appreciate your concern." She looked relieved that I hadn't dismissed her. "I can get someone it," she offered. "No," I said, cutting her off gently. "It's okay, I've got it." I turned and walked into the restroom, the world feeling suddenly surreal. I locked the stall, the cold metal against my back, and stood there gripping the walls like I was trying to hold on to something solid, something real. Clarissa, my wife, my partner of 12 years, had dropped something into my drink, something enough to alarm a stranger, something she didn't want anyone to see. I splashed cold water on my face, again and again, until my skin stung. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked composed, but my eyes were beginning to see clearly. For the first time in a long, long time. Returning to the table felt like stepping onto a stage. Everyone was still there, laughing, drinking, oblivious to the earthquake that had just shaken my world. My chair sat politely empty, waiting for me like a loyal dog. Clarissa turned to me, her smile bright and practiced. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice smooth and confident. "Perfect," I replied, and I meant it because now I had a plan. I sat down, glancing at the table. 2 wine glasses, mine still full, untouched, hers half sipped. I looked at them the way a surgeon studies an X-ray. One of them held a truth she didn't want me to swallow. One of them held my turning point. I nodded along to Jared's joke, laughed even, a hollow sound, a performance. But beneath the surface, my mind was racing. I was replaying Aisha's words, trying to make sense of them, trying to reconcile them with the woman sitting across from me, the woman I had shared my life with for 12 years. Clarissa was radiant. Her lipstick matched the wine in her glass. Her fingers danced when she talked, commanding attention as always. Everyone looked at her. Everyone always did. I used to admire that. Tonight, it felt like I was watching a performance I'd been excluded from. I watched her closely, every gesture, every smile, every word. I tried to see past the practiced charm, to find the truth hidden beneath. Was there a flicker of guilt in her eyes, a hesitation in her voice, or was I just imagining things, letting my suspicions color my perception? The weight of suspicion was heavy. It sat on my chest, making it hard to breathe. It clouded my thoughts, making it difficult to focus on the conversation around me. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to maintain a facade of normalcy while my world was crumbling beneath my feet. I tried to remind myself of the good times, the years of happiness we had shared, but the memories felt tainted now, viewed through the lens of doubt. Were they real? Had I been blind? Had I been a fool? I caught her eye, just for a moment, a casual flick of her gaze, as if to say, "You're watching, aren't you?" That glance alone made my throat tighten. It was a challenge, a silent acknowledgement that something was different. I took a sip of my wine, the wine she intended for me. It tasted normal, rich, red, no hint of anything sinister. But the thought of what it could have contained sent a shiver down my spine. I forced a smile, a practiced gesture. "Everything's fine," I said, my voice steady, betraying nothing. But inside I was crumbling. I was trying to hold on to the pieces of a life that was shattering before my eyes. The evening continued, the laughter, the conversation, the clinking of glasses. But for me, it was all a blur. I was lost in my own thoughts, consumed by the weight of suspicion, by the growing certainty that the woman I loved had betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. The decision came quickly, a sudden clarity amidst the chaos of my thoughts. I wouldn't confront her, not yet. I needed to know. I needed proof. And the only way to get that proof was to take a risk. The plan was simple, deceptively so. A switch, a calculated exchange of our wine glasses. It had to be seamless, unnoticed. A move so subtle that it would only draw attention if someone was already suspicious. And even then, it would just look like a distracted man adjusting his drink. My heart pounded in my chest. This was it. This was the moment of truth, the moment that would either confirm my worst fears or dispel them as paranoia. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves, trying to maintain the composure I had cultivated over years of business negotiations and high-pressure situations. Jared was still talking, going on about some business trip to Milan that no one had asked about. Clarissa was leaning slightly in his direction, her laugh syrupy and light, her body angled just enough to seem engaged. She threw me that glance again, that casual flick of the eye, as if to say, "You're watching, aren't you?" That glance solidified my resolve. I had to do this. I had to know. I had to stop the silent, agonizing debate in my head. I took another sip of my wine, the real wine, the one that hadn't been tampered with. It tasted normal, too normal. I set the glass down, my hand hovering near it. I waited for the right moment, for a distraction, for a break in the conversation. It came quickly. Lena, Clarissa's cousin, said something funny, something that made everyone laugh. Clarissa turned to her, her attention momentarily diverted. That was my chance. My left hand moved first, reaching for my glass. A slow, deliberate motion. My right hand followed, sliding hers into its place. The stems clinked softly, a barely audible sound, lost in the general noise of the restaurant. The glass trembled in my hand for a fraction of a second. My fingers tightened around it, steadying it. The wine sloshed slightly, a tiny ripple in the red liquid. But no one noticed, no one saw. It was done. The switch was made. The glasses were in their new positions. Mine now held whatever she had dropped into hers. Hers now held the innocent, untainted wine. I sat back, my hands resting calmly on my lap. My heartbeat was a drumbeat in my ears, echoing the silent drama unfolding beneath the surface. I watched Clarissa, my eyes never truly leaving her, even as I pretended to listen to Jared's endless story. The minutes ticked by, each one an eternity. I didn't know what she had dropped in. I didn't know how quickly it would work. But I knew one thing. Whatever it was, she had meant for it to reach my bloodstream. Clarissa raised her glass, now mine, and drank from it. A full sip, confident. Her smile bloomed, a practiced act. "To 12 more," she said, her voice ringing out. "May they be even better." "To 12 more," I echoed, my own voice steady, betraying nothing. But inside, I was holding my breath, waiting for the truth to reveal itself. The first few minutes after she drank felt like an eternity. Clarissa was radiant as ever, chatting with Jared, complimenting the wine, leaning in to whisper something to Lena that made her giggle. For a moment, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. Maybe Aisha was wrong. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe Clarissa had dropped a mint, a vitamin, some harmless romantic gesture. My heart started to ease, just a fraction. But then it began, so subtle, so slight, that anyone else at the table would have missed it. But I was watching. I was looking for the cracks in her performance. Her left eyelid twitched, just a tiny flutter, almost imperceptible. She blinked twice, slowly, then again rapidly. It was a nervous tick, something I had seen her do only when she was deeply uncomfortable, or lying. I pretended to wipe my mouth with my napkin, using the gesture to cover how closely I was studying her. My hand trembled slightly, but I kept my face impassive. Her hand hovered near the wineglass, but didn't lift it again. Her fingers wavered, as if the stem was heavier than it should have been. A slight tremor, barely noticeable, but there. Jared asked her a question. Clarissa smiled, opened her mouth to respond, and stopped. Just for a second. Her jaw clenched, her throat moved like she was swallowing something thick, something that didn't go down easily. I looked away, forcing myself to focus on Lena, on the conversation around me. I couldn't stare, not yet, but my heart was a drumline on parade in my chest, a frantic rhythm that echoed the growing panic inside me. Not panic from fear, but from confirmation. This was real. This was happening. She had drugged my wine, and now she was tasting the result. Marlene leaned in, subtle as always. "You good?" she murmured, her eyes searching mine. "Yeah," I replied smoothly. "Just full. Might step out for some air soon." Clarissa let out a low chuckle, the kind that didn't belong in the moment, a beat late. Her head swayed slightly, almost imperceptibly, but she caught herself. Her smile didn't quite recover after that. It was strained, forced. Her lips parted, as if to say something, then closed again. She looked around the table, her eyes landing on me. And for the first time all night, she truly saw me. Not the version I was presenting, not the doting husband, not the naive fool. She saw me, the man who knew, the man who had switched the glasses, the man who had returned from the restroom, changed, her mouth opened again. "Is it hot in here?" she mumbled, her voice thinner than before. Jared turned to her, his brow furrowed. "You all right?" Clarissa raised her hand slowly, touched her temple, like someone easing a headache into submission. "Just a little dizzy. Maybe the wine's stronger than I thought." No one laughed. The air in the room shifted, the festive atmosphere replaced by a growing unease. "Not this time," she added, her voice barely a whisper. She tried to stand, her napkin fluttering from her lap to the floor. Her heel caught the leg of the chair, her body tilted, but not dramatically, just enough that her posture no longer looked deliberate. Her weight leaned too far forward, and for a heartbeat she hovered, like a tree too weak to stay rooted. Then she collapsed, slow, surreal, folding back into her seat before sliding to the floor. The room changed instantly. Chairs scraped, silverware clinked as hands flew to mouths. Someone gasped, someone else stood and reached for their phone. "Clarissa," Jared barked, kneeling beside her. Her eyes fluttered, one arm sprawled against the floor, her other twitching at the elbow. I didn't move at first, then I stood, slowly, with deliberate calm. The show was over. The truth was out. Clarissa's fall wasn't dramatic. It wasn't the kind of scene that gets gasps in a movie. It was quiet, controlled at first, like her body was trying to maintain dignity even as it betrayed her. One moment she was sitting upright, the next she was slumped to the side, slow, graceless, helpless. Her hand had reached out, but not in time. The stem of the wineglass slipped from her fingers and tipped over, spilling Bordeaux like blood across the pristine ivory tablecloth. Jared caught her before she hit the floor completely, but not without a stumble. "Clarissa," he said, his voice pitched high with alarm. He shook her shoulder gently. Hey, talk to me." My sister, Marlene, stood up abruptly, knocking her chair back. "What's happening?" she asked, no one and everyone all at once. Clarissa tried to speak. Her lips parted and her throat moved, but the words never arrived. Her eyes fluttered, not a blink, just erratic, uncoordinated movement. She looked drugged, or worse. Her right hand twitched near her thigh, then curled in on itself, as if retreating from whatever force had taken over. I stayed in my seat a moment longer. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to see how everyone else would react. Maybe I wanted to be the last to rush in, just to mark the distance between who I had been before and who I was now. "She said she felt hot," I offered calmly. A technical truth. She was fine a minute ago. "She was laughing, toasting," Jared said, still crouched beside her. His face looked pale under the chandeliers. "Yes," I said. "She was." I stood then, slowly, not with urgency, but with control. The table was in full disarray now. Chairs pushed back, utensils knocked sideways, the red stain on the tablecloth spreading like a shadow. Clarissa groaned faintly, her head lolled against Jared's arm. Her eyes blinked, unfocused. Then for a second they found mine and held. That look. It froze something inside me. It wasn't a plea for help. It wasn't even surprise. It was closer to comprehension. like she knew exactly what had gone wrong, like she knew she'd failed. I crouched beside her, opposite Jared. "Clarissa," I said gently, taking her limp hand. It felt warm and clammy. "Can you hear me?" No response. "Someone call an ambulance," Marlene said, her voice sharp now. "I'm on it," Aisha yelled, appearing from the hallway, already on her phone. Good girl, I thought. Clarissa's head turned slightly at Aisha's voice, a flicker of something passing through her glazed expression. Fear, maybe? Or recognition? Did she realize that Aisha had seen her? That Aisha might have been the thread that unraveled this entire night? I kept holding her hand. Part of me hated her in that moment. Part of me still loved her. But mostly I just stared at her and waited to see if the poison would speak louder than her lies. The restaurant staff rushed in next. One of the managers knelt beside me and asked a series of questions. Was she diabetic? Allergic to anything? Had she had medication with the wine? I answered what I could. Jared answered the rest. His voice was too frantic, too familiar. I filed that away for later. "She's breathing," someone said. "Pulse is there, but weak." I nodded, lips pressed together. My hand never left hers. I wanted her to feel that. I wanted her to feel me there, watching, knowing, holding her through the very storm she'd planned for me. The ambulance arrived in what must have been 10 minutes, but felt like 20. Flashing lights through the tall windows, medics rushing in with quiet efficiency. They rolled her gently onto a stretcher. She groaned again, tried to speak, but her words came out slurred, almost unintelligible. I followed them out the door, one step behind. Not the grieving husband, not the panicked partner, just a man walking beside a mystery that had begun to crack open. I could hear the whispers behind me as we passed tables of stunned diners. Some recognized us, some just stared. I didn't care. At the curb, the medic asked, "Are you riding with her?" I hesitated. "No," I said, "I'll follow behind." He nodded and climbed in. The door shut. The siren stayed off, but the lights spun red against the pavement. And just like that, Clarissa was gone, swept away into the night by professionals who had no idea they were treating a woman who had tried to erase her husband over appetizers and wine. I turned and found Aisha standing behind me on the sidewalk, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "Thank you," I said. She looked like she wanted to disappear. I didn't know what else to do. "You did exactly what you were supposed to," she said, her eyes searching mine. "Are you okay?" I didn't know how to answer that. "I will be," I said. Then I got into my car, sat in the driver's seat, and stared at the steering wheel. My hands were shaking now, not violently, but enough. Enough to remind me I wasn't invincible, that this night had veered into something too surreal to grasp. The engine purred as I started the car. I pulled out slowly, following the red and blue strobe ahead. Clarissa had made her move. Now it was my turn. The hospital had that sterile, hushed atmosphere. Not peaceful, not restful, just clinical. I sat in the waiting room, still in that wine-stained suit, like it was a shell I couldn't shed. My tie hung crooked, my hands, once steady, were now laced together, knuckles pale. Everything smelled like antiseptic and old coffee, too clean to be comforting. Clarissa was inside, unconscious, stable, they said. The nurse at the desk had assured me 3 times that she was being monitored. Vitals were holding. Whatever she'd ingested hadn't killed her. Yet. I couldn't stop replaying it all in my head. The clink of the glass, the moment her eyes locked onto mine before she fell, the way she hadn't asked me for help, hadn't reached toward me. It wasn't panic, it was recognition. And underneath it, maybe something uglier. Maybe she knew the drink she'd laced had found its way back to her. Marlene had followed me to the hospital, and now paced the waiting room like a restless shadow. Her heels clicked with purpose on the tile floor. "You haven't said anything," she murmured. "Not really," I replied. "I'm thinking about what happens next." Aisha had called in a report. The restaurant had handed over security footage, but it was all still noise in my head. I needed something solid, something that couldn't be twisted. "Do you still believe it was her?" Marlene asked, stopping in front of me. "That she did something to your drink?" "She didn't deny it," I said quietly. "She didn't have the chance." Marlene didn't speak after that. She just sank into the chair next to me. We waited. Eventually, a woman in plain clothes and a badge stepped into the room. Detective Rosario, late 40s, sharp eyes, no nonsense voice. She scanned the room, spotted me, and walked over. Mr. Rowe, yes. Can we speak privately? Marlene stood. I'm his sister. Rosario gave her a nod, then looked at me again. What you share now could factor into an open investigation. You understand? I do,